don't realize that 9 times out of 10, what they say is not heard correctly. Okay?
Not heard with the intent that they're saying it?
Yeah, it's just not
misinterpreted.
Heard. Misinterpreted, it's just a mix-up when people are communicating. I think we have some visitors. Hi, welcome. Judith and I are together, and I've discovered some very interesting things about relationships. And I would like to share that with you and with Judith today.
I can always use help with relationships, and I think most of us can. I think relationships are extremely difficult, whether it's a friend or a spouse or a child or a parent. There are so many different kinds, and so I'm curious to see what Margaret has to say about this today.
And I hope that when you're listening to this, you might be able to apply it to some of your friends and families that are at home. It'll help you. Okay, what I've been working on, and I've been doing this for many years, is understanding that there are two kinds of people on this planet. Now you might say, okay, yes, there's
male and female,
right?
No, that's far too obvious. I know you better than that, Margaret. You're not going to go with the obvious. All right, two kinds of people.
Two kinds of people.
Passive and aggressive.
Well, there's that. There's also a passive-aggressive person.
Okay, so that's not a good guess.
Right.
What kind?
No, there are emotional, intellectual people and physical, literal people.
Emotional, intellectual.
Emotional, intellectual
And
people.
see, immediately that seems to me to be diametrically opposed. I always think
doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Right.
And the other is physical.
Literal people.
Literal. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, we in the business of hypnosis call it EMP, and I'm using these terms because a wonderful man named Dr. Kappas, who has a hypnosis institute here in California, did launch this idea. In his words, he calls them emotional and physical people. But I was working on this for many, many years, and I had my own little term, which was I called them either intellectual or physical people. So I've combined it here, emotional, intellectual, okay, and the physical, literal person. So you might well say to me, okay, so what is an emotional intellectual, right? An emotional intellectual is a person that lives from here up. This body doesn't really exist beyond it dragged around.
See, now I would think that this would be the intellectual and that the emotional would be in here, but you're saying no. This is like dead wood, and this is
the emotions come up, and the person says immediately, and I'll go into why in a while, I don't want to feel this feeling, cut it off, go into my intellect, and talk logic, okay? And rationalize and justify and explain and excuse and do everything possible to validate my existence in this world, okay? And don't ask me to talk about what I feel, okay?
So it isn't that they're trying to justify the feelings or rationalize the feelings. They're ignoring the feelings.
Yeah, and they're ignoring them because
it's too painful?
It's too painful.
Okay.
Right? Now, you might say, well, what about happy feelings? Right? They don't let themselves really enjoy themselves. Have you ever been to a party and you see this guy or this woman, they're sitting in the corner and they look like a real wallflower, you know, and you go up to them and you say, having a great time, you know, would you like a drink or something? And, you know, want to get up and dance, and they go, oh, no, okay, you know, they just want to let themselves enjoy themselves. They're afraid to have fun.
Yes. I've been in that position where I'm with a group of people that I don't know, and it's easier to sort of just hang back, and I'm a little fearful. So yeah, I understand that.
And look intelligent, and look like you're watching everybody, you know, sussing everything
Right,
out.
yes, taking it all in.
Right.
Yes.
When really what's going on inside is like, I don't know why I'm here.
Yes.
I don't know, why did they make me come? You know, I don't fit in, that kind of thing, right. So that's one kind of person. We'll talk a little bit more about what's going on psychologically. The other kind of person is me, see, physical. Very demonstrative. You know I'm in the room, right? I like to put my face on and I like to look dressed up and wear bright colors, right? Physical people are in the body. They're the ones that go around and say, oh, you know, I really feel the charisma here, you know, it's me, you know, that
So,
kind of
so
thing.
they're more in tune to things rather than looking at it, everything in a cerebral sort of way.
Right. And you ask them, well, what do you think about something? They look at you like, what am I supposed to think? You know, am I supposed to have an idea about this? Am I supposed to know about this?
But it can't be
No.
that cut and dried. I mean, everybody isn't totally one or totally the other. It must bleed back and forth somewhat.
Yes, there is actually, you're right. Average person, I guess, is around 65, 70% one or the other. The other 30, 25% is the opposite, okay? So if we talk about me, for example, when I sort of tested myself, I found that I was, you know, around 75% suggestible, physical. Now, that means that when I was a little girl, under the age 8, everything that I experienced was felt. In other words, everybody was telling me all sorts of stuff, and I was going around with wide eyes going, oh, wow, wow, I can just feel it, I believe it, okay? And that made me very physical, which is good because that's what helped me become a healer. Do you remember what you were like under 8 years old?
Not,
It's hard,
it's
isn't it?
hard, yes, it is hard. I
Yeah.
mean, I can remember myself, and I do remember certain things, but I can't quite pinpoint it as easily as you do.
Right. See, I'm attuning to you psychically, and I'm picking up there was a lot of emotional stuff going on. Now, think about your mother.
All
Okay?
right.
Is your mother a person that comes up to you and hugs you and holds you really tight, or is she someone that comes and goes kind of, hi, glad you're over? Which
Yeah,
does she do?
she's more a patter. I think
Okay.
she'd like to be a hugger, but
Right.
that's, yeah.
See, we get this from our mother in the beginning. Remember, we've talked about this in other shows, how the mother is a strong influence. And so in the first 8 years, your primary role model is your mom, right?
Right.
So if your mom's not doing a lot of hugging, if she's doing more of the, okay, we're all going to eat now, go wash your hands, and you all get ready and all excited and you're all ready to go eat, and then suddenly the phone goes and she's chatting to a friend on the phone for 20 minutes, guess what? You learn dinner isn't now. It might be, but it means I can go back and play some more, I can do something else, okay? So what you learn in those first years is that if you've got an emotional mother, she doesn't do a lot of hugging. She just touches when she has to. Change your diaper, give you a bottle, make sure you got your sandwiches for school, pat you on the back, run along now. Excellent moms, you know, nothing wrong with being a mum that way, but they just don't hug so much, right? So the child learns to not hug so much. But this is suggestibility, okay? This is what you're suggesting. So what you do is you're trying to figure out what mum exactly means, okay? So if mum says we're going to sit down and eat, and then the phone goes and she's chatting for half an hour, that didn't mean we're going to eat, that meant we might someday eat.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we learn in that first 8 years is to read the inferred message, read between the lines.
So that's why we don't listen to people literally.
Right.
We try and figure out what we think they mean
Uh-huh.
rather than what
Right.
the words are saying.
Right, and that's a big thought to think about because, you know, how do you know what's going to happen? You don't. So your mind's constantly going, what do they mean? What do they mean? What do they mean? You see? So that happens. That happens a lot. And we're going to a PSA now.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's life. And if you're a person, you absolutely won't want to miss out on it. Yes, life. It opens clogged breathing tubes, refreshes like no other, and you can enjoy it wherever you go. That's right. Life's so versatile, there's almost no limit to what you can do with it.
Hi, Mom.
Why, just listen to what satisfied people are already saying about their lives.
I would trade mine for anything.
I would be sunk without mine.
You gotta get one of these. Life. It's so easy to use. Just follow these 2 simple directions.
Do cool stuff.
Don't do drugs.
How can you get one? It's easy. There are no numbers to call, no forms to fill out, and no salesman will knock at your door. So act now, because life
Goes with everything.
Except drugs.
A message from a drug-free Navy and Marine Corps.
Life.
Only 1 per customer.
That are emotional like this are basically constantly looking for reading between the lines. So if I say to you, shut the door, okay, and assuming you're an emotional, you're going to be thinking, why? Does she think I left it open? Is there going to be a rainstorm in a minute? Is Tom, Dick and Harry going to come in and knock us over the head and steal our money? You know, 101 ideas are going behind, because the inferred message, as far as the emotional, intellectual is concerned, is what's important, not
Right.
the literal sense.
Right.
Okay? Now, if I am a physical, which come back to me, and I say shut the door, all I mean is shut the door. Okay? And if you take the suggestion as an emotional, intellectual, that I mean this robber's going to come in and steal our money, you go into a loop and a nervous thing. You say, where shall I hide? You know, and I'm going, what? Hey, what did the door shut? Why do you want to hide?
Right.
You know, now I'm making, of course, a silly conversation, right? But imagine you've got a husband and wife situation, and the wife is a physical, and she's saying, I really need a hug. And he's saying, oh, she's got PMS. You know, she got out of bed the wrong side this morning. The kids got on her back or something. And I'm very in a hurry. I have to go to work right now. Hi, honey. Love you. Bye. Gone out the door. The wife is a physical. She's left going, he never held me. He never touched me. You see what I'm saying? Can you imagine how a physical feels when they're not getting a hug?
Mm-hmm. Well, especially if they've asked for one and
Right.
still don't get
Because
it.
they want it literally, okay? And the emotional husband is saying, she doesn't mean it. She really means that she wants me to pick up the kids from school, or she really means that she wants me to bring more money home. And they wonder why they're not communicating.
But you know, my husband and I have sort of a joke that's gone on for years, because I always tell him, listen to what I mean, not to what I say. And that really hooks into what you're talking about. And we always treat it a little bit lightly, and that's what he tries to do now. He really tries to listen to what I mean and not to what I say. And they can be very much the same, or they can be very different, you know? And I guess maybe it's not fair to him to try and expect him to be able to do that. But as I say, it's sort of a joking kind of thing.
Right, and it's good that you can joke about it. See, that's the problem. Most people don't joke. Or they don't say, wait a minute, can I double check? What did you really mean? Okay.
But see, I always thought too that it was really good. Somebody will get a letter and they'll say, oh, well, you know, she said everything's wonderful, but I'm reading between the lines, and really I think, you know, maybe she's having a few problems with her husband or something. And I always thought that that was really a positive, to be able to read between the lines and you know, see beyond the obvious. And you know, but it doesn't mean if you're reading between the lines that you're reading accurately between the lines.
Yeah, that moves into the other area, which is coming into the father. Okay, I want to talk about that, but I'd like to finish up with the suggestible part, the mother part.
Okay.
Okay, so if you've got a mother that's really physically touching and holding a baby and playing games and rolling around on the floor and all that stuff, and she literally does everything. Come on, wash your hands now. I'm taking you to, we are washing the hands now, instead of the emotional mother, which is going to say, go on, wash your hands. I'll be in a minute, see what you're doing. There's a difference. When that happens, the physical child learns, taking in or everything, remember we believe everything, physical child learns that what is said is done right now is literal. And that's the basic difference in suggestibility. The emotional, intellectual doesn't believe anything is now. It's always got something else around it going on, something else confusing.
So, just to be sure I'm not confused, you're saying that we become one or the other based on what we're taught by our mother?
Mm-hmm. That's our suggestibility.
Okay. So we're a blank slate.
We're a blank state when we come in. We have nothing. This brain is empty. We have in the deep subconscious our spirit mind. That's absorbing all the time.
But with my children, and each one is so very different from the other, I don't feel they were blank slates at all. I feel that there were very definite personalities that I had very little to do with, that I always used to believe in nurture more than nature. And then after having 2 children, I really believe in nature more than nurture. So I guess it's hard for me to really conceive that I have, and certainly I know that as a parent you have an enormous amount of impact on these children, but that it would be that complete, that there isn't a predisposition that they're born with that makes them do one or the other.
Right. It's you know, we're an open book, like I said, and we absorb everything. 8 years old, you know, the priest, the guy down the street, anybody, a sudden sound on the street, all these things are overloaded into our mind. Our mind is just an open vessel receiving. And then when we get over 8, around 9, and we start moving into the teenage years, we develop the secondary level of ourself. And that comes from the role model that is the father. And the father helps us develop our sexual persona, which can be emotional or physical. Mm-hmm. Okay? And the sexual persona is the character, the flamboyancy that we put out, which I was talking about, the person that sits in the corner versus the person that comes out and really says, hey, you know, I'm holding center stage. Okay? A lot of times, the father, if he's a physical, will take his son out and play baseball and hold him and show him how to, you know, swing that bat and catch that ball. They show their arms, you know, like I'm doing. Mm-hmm. They stand hands on hips. Body language says a lot about a physical personality. They're talking, they don't mind being out there talking. How do you feel, you know, if you're, like if I said, okay, let's have you stand up in front of 100 women and talk about being a casting director?
Oh, I could do that easily.
Right.
I can get up in front of people and it's not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, in what you're talking about, my father was extremely undemonstrative. He was very quiet, very into himself. I don't remember hugs from my dad. I mean, if my dad wanted to show affection, he would kind of take your own hand and hit you with it and say, why are you hitting yourself? You know, that was kind of how he paid attention to you.
That is physical. My dad used to do that to me. What is it about that?
But it was almost like he couldn't really show a genuine affection.
But can you see how that is a physical thing?
But it wasn't
right.
often.
I
guess. Banging yourself, right. Yeah, yeah. I guess, but I would have thought that he was not physical
my dad,
at all.
And again, I don't want to be running down parents because, as I said, you know, in other times with you, our parents are perfect for what we need to grow. But my dad came out of the Second World War. I had a lot of disruptions going on in his life and was very aggressive, did a lot of shouting and a lot of hitting. But it was physical. There are 2 kinds of physical. And, you know, a man that is afraid to show, and remember, you're a girl, and some men find it very difficult to touch their daughters. Okay?
But I mean, he never shouted, he didn't discipline. I mean, there was almost just this total passivity. I mean, it sounds like the opposite of what you grew up with.
Yeah. Well, I'm not here to analyze you and your life, but usually it is the physical personality in the man that will produce the physical child, male or female, and the etheric, the emotional is coming from the emotional dad. You know, so we'll talk about this some more when we come back in the next break. Okay?
Yeah, let's be sure in the next break that we talk.
Margaret, back for me.
Fry.
Getting advance permission from landowners is not only courteous,
Appreciate your call yesterday. Well, I appreciate you letting us hunt here, Mr. Fry.
it's a requirement of safe and responsible hunting.
Have a good time.
Thank you, Mr. Fry.
See you on the way back. Remember, we treat Mr. Fry's property like it's our own.
Because hunting safety isn't inherited.
Yeah, right.
You have to teach it.
Let's go. Come on, come on.
For more information on hunter education in California, call 916-653-1235.
But you've got to remember too that sometimes, like you're saying with your father, he wasn't so demonstrative. Sometimes the child will flip role models, okay? Like there might be an older brother in the family, or there might be an uncle, or there, you know, someone that the child can connect with, or grandfather, you know, where it can get more of a tie-in through those teenage years. And if there's a lot of touching or a lot of support in a physical sense or a lot of literal, you know, this is what we're doing and we do it now, then we're going to develop the physical personality. If we have a lot of hinting and inference and non-communications and lack of support and encouragement in terms of helping that child through the teenage years, then they're going to become an emotional sexual personality, okay? And when you're looking at the two, like I said, the emotional, intellectual, okay, is introverted, the body language is drawn in, the physical is flamboyant and so on. Can you imagine what happens when they get opposites get together? Like attracts like in opposition, the law of karma. It's like, oh, here's this person that's all physical. I want to be physical. I want to open up and be very physical. And so the emotional actually drops the barrier and becomes physical. And they woo and dine the women like nobody's business. Okay, flowers, the lot. And the physical says, oh, wow, I found my Prince Charming. And then after about 3 or 4 of these romantic things, suddenly Mr. Emo starts becoming more intellectual, doesn't arrive on time, doesn't call, doesn't tell you what's happening. And Miss Physical is getting really angry, really antsy, because what happened to this Romeo? Okay, and we go into the scenario of marriage, the husband, he provides, he gets the money on the table, then he's out with his friends playing golf, he's got more important business meetings, and the family's last on the line. That's Mr. Emotional. And meanwhile, wife's at home, Miss Physical, going, he doesn't love me, he doesn't care about me, he's not there. I mean, you must have friends.
Absolutely. I mean, this sounds frighteningly familiar.
Right.
And I guess maybe it's a little bit more something to be said for really having a long courtship and not marrying too soon, but really getting to know somebody and getting beyond that initial courtship and really creating
being
a friendship.
Together, and as much as you can be, like 24 hours in a day is
Right.
good. I know it's the old philosophies have gone about, you know, arranged marriages are going, but there's still some in this world, and these people wonder who the hell they've bumped into, you know. But let me reverse it and just for a minute and say we've got Mr. Physical with Miss Emo, you know, and they meet. Mr. Physical will want to wine her and dine her and be there with her morning, noon and night. And she's like, oh, wow, for the while. And then it's like, wait a minute, it's too much. You're on my face. I can't.
Back up, give me space,
Leave me
right,
alone.
yes.
I want to go out. I want to do other things, you know. So she's going to be pushing him away, and then he feels rejected. And both physical male and female will hang on and hang on. Wait, don't leave me, you know, or how can you leave me? What are you doing? And that's when you get into real trouble because the emotional, intellectual wants space.
So are you better off with someone like you are, or are you better off with somebody opposite?
That's the thing. Better with
You
someone
need the
opposite.
balance.
You need the balance.
You need the balance.
If you've got 2 physical people together, they're going to argue all the time. I love you more than you love me. I'm here more cooking the dinner than you are, etc.
Right.
Emos, oh, I'm off to my meeting, darling, bye. Oh, I'm off to my, whatever, hairdressers, bye. Nobody ever sees anyone. Nobody's ever home. You know, the only person that's at home is the cat, you know.
And the cat's lonesome. You know, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask us about this particular topic, or if you have some subject matter, you have some questions you'd like to ask a psychic like Margaret, and you'd like for us to discuss, we'd really like to hear from you. We'll be putting an address up at the end of the show, so get out your pencil and paper and feel free to call or write to us.
Yeah, and if you do have marriage problems or you know someone that does, you know people need help, you can always call us for some information. There are a lot of people out there having a hard time wondering why their relationships don't work. And I would add that, you know, working on this, there is a book put out by Dr. Kappas, which is called EMP.
EMP.
Yeah. Okay, so coming back to an ideal relationship, what can you do? If you're with a physical person and you're an emo, try and find that other 25, 35%, however it is, bring it up and be physical, okay? If you're the reverse, and try and find that part. A thing to say here is that emotional intellectuals do not like a lot of physicality. They get very hot to trot in the bedroom one day, and we have to wait 3 days before we're ready again, whereas the physical person is hot to trot all the time because that physical need, touch, control. So there's a lot of problems in the bedrooms, and if people understood that this is going on, and the emotional person can be a little bit more physical, and the physical be a little less physical, and a little more understanding, you could sort a lot of bedroom problems out too, you know. So it's really worth thinking about. Look at your parents. Ask yourself, was your mother someone who touched a lot? Was your father someone who touched a lot? You know, see what's happening.
And then try and figure out where you were, what you were like up to the age of 8. Is that the time frame? It's what happens to you prior to the age of 8, and see how you developed into what you are and who you are.
Yeah, so we'll leave that thought with everyone today because we're running out of time as usual. So the more we talk about these things, the more we can find more information. Doesn't matter.
Well, I think the more information we have about ourselves, the better off we are, and the more understanding we have about who we are.
And that's because the capillaries, are so fine that there was nothing that they could do to stop it. So unfortunately, I lost my grandson.
Oh.
So that's 3 babies that we've lost, and it's very sad.
That must be very difficult for the parents.
Yeah. Oh, hello, welcome. We're glad you could join us again. Today, Judith and I are talking about sad things and happy things related to birth.
And Margaret and I, at one point, touched very briefly on the pro-life, pro-choice aspect that I think is so difficult for everyone now. And while we really don't want to take a stand one way or the other, it's a very personal decision, I was really interested in what Margaret had to say about the unborn child spiritually, And, you know, I think women who may already have had an abortion or may be considering it, and whether it is actually the stopping of a life and what happens to the spirit of that child. And, you know, I know that Margaret has a great deal to share, and I'm really curious about it. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, Margaret. And I wonder if you could just shed some insight for me, because, you know, it is a difficult thing for so many women.
Right. Well, as I was saying to you, you know, with my son, for example, you know, it seemed like losing 3 babies, that this was very traumatic, and I expected them to be crying and really all over the place. And in fact, they were very much laid back, and even she, who'd been through this cesarean birth to try and save the child, was, okay, well, it just happened. And of course, if it wasn't for my metaphysical background, I would have found myself saying, but how, they're unfeeling, they're not doing something. But of course, what I know and what I'd like to share with you is that when we decide to have a baby, it doesn't just come along and arrive and grow inside us. There's a lot of planning that goes into this, way before the baby's born. Did you ever realize that?
No, you mean planning other than by the parents who are involved?
Right, it's planning in the spirit world a long, long time. Sometimes it could be as much as our time, 200 or 300 years before the people are born, their grandparents are born, maybe their great-grandparents are born, and there's all this chain reaction going on. And so sometimes the master plan, if you like, is that several spirits have come together and made this little map of history that they're going to create and be born in a certain time.
But what you're talking about is there's all those years of planning, and yet there's nothing ever really comes to fruition. Why is all that planning go into something that is so short term? That, you know, in 3 instances, there was no life beyond birth, and for one of them, it was never even born. What is gained by that, by the spirit that's in those bodies, or is it just a learning experience for the would-be parents involved?
It's that, and it's for the spirit too. Let's pretend we're in the spirit world, okay?
Okay.
And I'm sitting just like I am with you over tea.
We do that in the spirit world? We just sit over tea?
You can do anything you want to in the spirit world. You know, it's okay.
That's good to know. I like that.
And I say to you, Judith, you know, I feel like it's time for me to go back down on that planet Earth and live a physical life again. And you say, you know, I was feeling the same. We get on so well up here. Why don't we plan something together? Okay? Just like we would.
It's that casual.
It's that casual. And then I'll say, well, you know, I've been looking at all the different things I've been doing throughout my life. And remember, my life is my spirit life, not my life here. Just like I would say that now, okay? And I'd say, you know, I'm ready for a change. Just like I said to you, you know, I'm ready for a change with my hairdo, and I went out and did it. Well, it's kind of the same thing. You just say, I'm ready for a change. And I look back at all the things that I've done before, and I think, you know, I've done a lot of study on, say, trying to be peaceful with myself. I'd like to go down and learn the focus of all that experience of being peaceful. I'd like to go down into an environment where everybody's on my back, okay, and test me to see if I can trust myself with the peace I've got. Okay, and you sit there and you say, you know, that would be good for me, because I'd like to come down and be the person that gets on your neck and pushes you and pokes you.
That sounds like me.
Because I'm learning aggression right now, you know, and I won't just think what you said. And, you know, and I want to push and poke you because I want to learn to be strong. Okay, so we say, okay, we'll do that.
So it's a symbiotic relationship. We decide that we're going to go into the physical life and we're going to learn from each other. I'm going to test your peace and you're going to help me learn to be more assertive.
Exactly.
And, all right. But still, how does that pertain? These lives, these spirits never actually came into the world. That never happened.
Let's go a little further. Let's build a little scenario here. So at that point, we agree we want to work together. And we go along, we see our master teacher is going to be our spirit guide, because everybody has spirit guides. You can call them guardian angels, whatever you want, and there's a number of them.
For each person?
For each person. And sometimes they overlap. So like if we're doing a thing together, your guide and my guide will be friends, and maybe they're both our guides sometimes, because like you go to the same school and you have the same class teacher.
Right.
Okay.
So we could have the same guide.
So we can have the same guide. So then we go and we see them. We say, you know, we've decided we want to go down and live again. And he says, well, how do you want to do it? You know, and then we think, well, why don't we get married? Well, you know, we need some husbands, we need some children. And we look around at other friends and people we know, and we think, okay, would you like to come in on the party and work with us? And some of them might say, well, you know, I don't want to actually come down and live, but I don't mind helping you on this subject of inner peace and trust. You know, I tell you what, I'll come close to you. Maybe you might want to get pregnant, and I'll come in for a while, and I'll kind of, by being there and being around you, I'll give you an opportunity to think about how much you trust yourself and how much you feel at peace with yourself, you see. And so I get pregnant, and during that time, let's say it's inconvenient. Let's be really mad and say I haven't got married yet. You know?
Okay.
And you know, it's inconvenient. And now I'm saying, do I trust myself? I'm pregnant. Do I trust myself that I can bring up this baby in the world, that I can provide for it, I can do all this stuff, you know, whatever. Do I trust my boyfriend that he's going to stay around and be with me? Do I trust this child that I'm carrying, that it's going to stay around with me and love me, won't play me up and do drugs or something, you know? And of course, we all get into the scenario that we want everything to be best. And let's say, you know, I'm going through all that, I'm thinking all this stuff, and then all of a sudden I've come around to, okay, I accept the pregnancy, I'm going to go through it. And suddenly, for no reason, I get cramps and I lose it. Okay?
So that's just another test. Now you have to see how you deal with that loss. But what we're talking about right now is when all of these things happen, but they're not your choice. You lose the baby because your body won't carry it, whatever. But when you're dealing with abortion, does the same thing apply when you actually choose to terminate that life?
Absolutely. See, take the same scenario I just gave you. These particular spirits may be saying, you know, I'm preparing for another life. Maybe I want to be born 40 years after, you know, you've done the baby thing. But I haven't been down on the earth for, say, well, 100 years. You know, I was around when there were horses and carriages. I don't know about spaceships yet. You know, I want to get a little bit more up to date. Even though Spirit does know what the universe is doing and does know what is in form, it's not the same as literally feeling it physically. So the Spirit might say, I need to come down. I'll help you with your lesson about learning about peace or whatever. And at the same time, it'll help me through your body and your vibration and your awareness of your life to get ready for my next life.
But wait, I think that spirit's taking an enormous chance, because humans aren't predictable. If that spirit goes in knowing that probably what's going to happen is it's going to be aborted, and then it's free to go back to the spirit world to be born 40 years later, what if you decide, no, you're going to have that baby for whatever reason, and then it's born and it doesn't want to be born?
Because you won't have it. It's as simple as that. You've made a promise in the spirit world that you will interact with this person and not hold them. And one of the laws of karma is no one fragment, you're a fragment, I'm a fragment, no one fragment shall impose its will on another. So it doesn't matter how much you might think you're going to have that baby.
You're not.
You're not.
There's no way that's going to happen.
No way. Even if you're the most healthy person and everything was going fine, let's say you get to your 7th, 8th month, you could find yourself going down the road and slipping on a lump of ice.
And so your body would lose it naturally.
Right.
Okay, so even if you don't make the conscious decision, somehow that spirit is going to be released and not be forced into a life that it's not prepared to commit to.
If they want to, they might choose to go all the way and maybe have a cot death.
Right.
And you don't even know why that child died, it just left. Because it wasn't ready to be here.
And for those of us who don't speak British. A cot death is like a crib death?
Yes,
Is that
yes.
it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
All of a sudden it occurred to me, a cot death.
Yeah,
Maybe there are people who won't
Right,
understand.
there's a lot of words that I have that people wonder what I'm talking about.
So I'm here to interpret. That's it.
Right.
So, you make it almost sound like a game.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, once the spirit gets here and is in physical body, it's not a game. I mean, life is difficult. And I don't care who you are or what you have materially or whatever, life is difficult. So it's kind of hard for me sometimes to even think that spirits would want to choose to come back. And I know that you say they do because they have a lesson that they want to learn. But why don't they all just pick something nice and fluffy and, and pleasant?
Well, you wouldn't grow. I mean, just think about school.
But see, you just threw that line away.
I did.
You threw that line away, and actually when I hear you, that says it all. You wouldn't grow. And it's about growth. It's about the spirit growing and learning until it reaches perfection. Will it ever? Can it reach perfection? Or is it constantly a work in progress?
Yeah, everybody, I guess the best way you can understand this is think about something you do, like your work as a casting director. You go out there, you're looking for the best person that will fit the part, and you have someone in mind, and you hope that they'll be fine. And when you audition them, you think, well, not quite. And you go and you search for some more, and you go on and on till you really get that right person, right? Okay. And you're almost driven. You know you've got to do that, and you love it. So it's beyond just I got a salary at the end of it, right? Well, in the same way, the spirit is driven. It's not consciously saying, oh, good, a tick. I've got a 1 up here.
Yeah, right. So there isn't a chart, and you don't mark them off, and when you're through, you score 100, and then you just are.
Right. No. What you basically do is your spirit inside you. I tell you what, I was in Japan recently, right? And I was teaching there. And they asked me that question there, and one of the ways it came out, because in spirit in my head things just come out, and this is what they said to them, okay? You know how it feels when you get on the train and you're going to work. It's very crammed. There are a lot of people on that train, and the subways there are like this,
right?
And everybody freezes, and nobody says anything, and everybody tries to pretend that they don't know the person next to them, that kind of thing. And that's, in a sense, how the spirit feels when it comes down inside this body. It's cramped inside here, and it has so much it wants to do, but this body is so limited, right, that it can only do so much each time. It feels suppressed. Okay, so what happens is that the spirit says, I went on that train, I had that ride, I only got to stand like this. I want to go on and be able to stand like this or like this. So eventually you end up wanting to keep going on the train over and over and over so you can get to really do everything on that train you could possibly do. Does that make it simpler? Understand?
Yes. I guess I do understand as much as I can. I think that I'm, even as the spirit is like this, I'm limited too sometimes in my comprehension, and I think I'm trying to understand the concepts that you just are so comfortable with and so familiar with. But when you talk about the spirit and you talk about them planning, now I've been told that you pick your parents. Is this true?
Yes, you do. But I'm also aware that the people here probably need a break. So let's them go away and do whatever, and we'll talk a little bit, and then they'll be right back.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We'll see you later.
So anyway,
Being homeless is awful.
You don't know about being evicted until you are evicted.
My mother was on drugs.
It was horrible.
My first goal is to become a nurse.
My ultimate goal is to be an attorney.
It costs society $15,000 a year to keep a family homeless. It costs family assistance program between $3,000 and $5,000 a year to make that family whole.
I feel very good about myself. No handouts. Just love.
mothers and fathers, okay? I often used to think to myself, why would I choose, and I'm not putting my mother down, but why would I choose a mother who was so negative throughout her life? And I love her dearly, but everything she talks about is always on the negative side. Why would I choose that? Well, in the long run, she's my role model, right? So I copy her until I get to be 20, and I suddenly go, this doesn't work for me. And at that point, I start to find, what's the alternative? I spent 25 years trying to learn to be positive.
But you actually copied your mother until you were 20?
Yeah.
Most kids rebel far sooner than that.
But you see, you don't know you're doing it.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Like, if I watch my mother say, fussing about going down the road for some reason, and we have to have everything just so, and you know, and I'm saying, okay, fine, you know, do whatever you want inside, but I'm saying to her on the outside, oh, what have you got this, Mum? Have you got that? You know, it's training. You're protecting. You're trying to help the parent, okay? And then you get away from home and you think, I'm never going to be like that, and along come your children, and there you are. Now, have you got this? Now, hurry up, we're going to be late. And you hear yourself saying things that you said you would never say when you were a child, because you learn how to be a mom from your mother.
Right.
Okay? So even though you might say, well, I'm not going to be like my mother, I'm not going to say it the
Which I think
way
everybody
she
does. Everybody
says
says,
it.
I'm not going to make the same mistakes my mother made.
Right.
You do.
You do.
You do.
Right. And so, you know, in the Bible it says, if the sins of the father shall be passed to the son, then neither shall the son nor the father be saved. But, and it goes on, if the sins of the father shall be passed to the son, and the son shall see the error of the father's ways, then shall the son and the father also be saved. Sin is habit. We change the habit. But let me come back into the spirit world.
Okay. And I want to
yeah.
get back to the issue of abortion, too, because I have another question that's kind of come up in my mind
Okay,
while
well,
we've
I
been
was just
thinking
going
about
to say that, you know, you and I, for example, we have a very close rapport, and because I have memory, I know that we have a lot of things that we did in the spirit world together. And, you know, what I wanted to mention here is a lot of spirits who like to come down and be together will come down over a lot of different lives in different times, as friends, enemies, family members, acquaintances, even ships that pass in the night sometimes, but there's a touching, there's a coming close, because there's always a thread of confidence in, I know who I've been with, I can trust them to help me grow, but we also bring more in, and the whole point of the spirit is to get more and more contact with more and more people. The more people you meet, the more people you know, the more your heart opens up, and you can become a Jesus then.
And then is it the more spirits that you have when you get back to the spirit world who are a part of that extended life?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, if there's somebody listening who is considering an abortion,
Mm-hmm.
and they listen to what you say, and they're really struggling with this, whether they should or they shouldn't. Now, could they take what you've said and said, well, this is a spirit that I used to know, and this baby doesn't really expect to be born anyway, so that's an excuse for me?
No, you can't do that. I mean, I have many young women that have come to see me over the years. I've also had many people come to me and been told they can't have babies.
Mm-hmm.
And I've helped them get babies. And it sounds rather odd, but I want to say that there are 7 women who've had babies who I made pregnant.
Congratulations.
But what I mean is I had to work with the energies, I had to work with their balancing, I had to work with their counseling, I had to help them understand who they were, I had to work with their fathers, I had to work the interaction to get their energies to blend to make it possible for these babies to be born. Okay? And the hospitals were saying there's no way these people are going to be pregnant. And we proved them wrong. And in 4 of the cases, the doctors had to say, I don't know what you did, but I have to admit, you, the healer, did it. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So in the same way, going to the negative, if, you know, let's be very negative. Let's say a girl gets raped, so she doesn't want to have a baby. But it might be that it turns around that she actually has the baby, okay? It's because she set herself up to go through that scenario in order to value and appreciate her body and her life. And a lot of women do not value their, there's a lot of women in the South, for example, they're married at 14, 15 years old. They've got 5 babies by the time they're 20, 1 a year. Okay? They don't have any education. They don't have any values. And you could look at them and say, why? Well, in the overview, what they're saying is they're learning that they don't have any appreciation for themselves. And they're learning it the hard way. Okay, so coming back to your question, if a person is pregnant by whatever means and is not meant to continue, there is a complete and utter knowing within that this is not meant to continue, that if you did continue it, you would be breaking a promise. It's an inner thing, an absolute inner thing. I know because I had to make that choice. And in fact, what I learned, and this is in my book, was later, I didn't know at the time, but what I learned was that the baby, the spirit in the baby, was actually my guardian angel, Sister Teresa, who took this opportunity to be with me in that situation so that she could bond closer to my energies and my vibration. And today, she's so much one with me, it's almost like she's me.
So is the spirit within the child from the moment of conception, or does the spirit come into the child at a later point?
The spirit of the child can choose. It can do what it wants to do, okay? And a lot of times, it will come in somewhere in the 3rd month.
Somewhere in the
with
3rd
the
month. So
quickening.
it's not a set.
The mother, her energies keep the baby growing. It is a growth of the mother. It's like a leaf growing on a tree. And at the time of the bonding, I bonded with my mother when she was about 6 to 8 weeks, and I had to do some healing on that little fetus because it was so small and it was red and inflamed. And I was actually looking at it and saying, oh, it's a girl. I really wanted to be a boy, but, it's
But you
okay.
didn't have that choice?
No. The biological thing that happens and the way it grows is all controlled by the mother. Believe it or not, science has been looking at the ova, and all babies are female in the beginning and the way the chromosomes split. But it is the energy of the way the mother flows in her body that is either male or more female.
So you're telling me, contrary to science, that it isn't the sperm, because we've all been taught that the sperm determines.
It's got to be opposite. My mother was aggressive, so that was a male energy. So she creates a female baby. It's something that happens in my family. We go female, male, female, different generation. That's a whole different subject.
Right.
Okay, that's a whole different subject. But when I've worked with mothers that can't have babies, for example, I have to look at the energies of their 5 bodies. And the most common body that's usually screwed up, and I use that word literally because it's like a screw and everything is all screwed in on itself, is the etheric body. And the etheric body is the lower emotions and mind. And that is all the conditioning you've had from day one. Well, actually, before day one. It's from in the birth, in the womb. Okay.
Etheric. It's not a word I'm familiar with.
Etheric is, there are 5 bodies: the physical, the etheric, the spirit, the higher mind, the soul body. Okay. The etheric is literally etheric energy. It's nebulous. You can't get hold of it like this, and it's constantly moving,
like ethereal
and swirling. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's where the word comes from.
Okay.
And what happens is it should flow nicely all the way around like this. Okay, and it flows all the way around your body. Now, let's say you've got a thing about holding on to people. When you hold on, I got to have this, I'm thinking about these people and I need these people, or, all this is going on. You're getting so much tension in your physical body. What's happening is the energy can't flow in your etheric body.
Margaret, even if I have questions that I want to ask you, perhaps our audience also has questions. And we do put an address up at the end of the show We'd love to hear from you if you have any questions regarding this particular topic, or if there are any things that you would like for us to discuss specifically on another show. We'd be happy to hear from you, and then I'll represent you and ask Margaret questions, and we're interested in what you're interested in as well. So please feel free to contact us.
Yeah, and I always like to teach and lecture too, and I often go around and about. So if you have any places that you'd like us to come and share our information with, we could always go and do that. That's something we've been talking about doing lately.
Right, and we'd love to meet you in person.
And I have this book on the subject that we've been talking about tonight, pro-life, pro-choice, pro-spirit. If you're interested, do write. It's all about this subject. Very informative, I think, because I wrote it. But, you know, the basic thing about this issue of abortion is that a person must know in their heart and soul that this is what they want to do. And if you find yourself in that situation, you should seek counseling and guidance no matter what. Okay?
Because I think sometimes, too, it isn't even something that a woman necessarily wants to do, but feels she has to do.
Right.
And there are so many things that come into it. But we're delighted that you joined us today.
And we thank you, and goodbye.
Goodbye. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, when I thought about